Miriam Walker sat quietly by the living room window of her cozy suburban home, her sharp blue eyes scanning the familiar street that stretched out before her. At 72, Miriam had become something of a fixture in the quiet neighborhood of Willow Creek. A widow for nearly 5 years, her days were often filled with tending to her garden, reading mystery novels, and observing the gentle rhythms of the street she called home. Willow Creek was a place where neighbors nodded hello, where children played freely under watchful eyes, and where life moved with a calm predictability. The streets were lined with maple and oak trees, their leaves painting the sidewalks in brilliant shades of red and gold each autumn. It was the kind of neighborhood where families dreamed of settling down for good. But recently, a shadow had begun to creep into Miriam's peaceful world. Each evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky transformed into a canvas of soft purples and oranges, Miriam's attention would be drawn to a peculiar sight at the far end of Maple Street. A sleek black car, unmistakably out of place among the modest sedans and SUVs, would glide smoothly down the street, its polished surface catching the last light of day. Behind the wheel was a man she knew well by reputation, John Marshall. John had once been a pillar of the community, a wealthy businessman known for his generosity and charisma. His mansion, perched on a hill overlooking Willow Creek, was a symbol of success that many admired. But in recent months, rumors had swirled of financial troubles and personal struggles. John himself had become something of an enigma, his presence less frequent and his demeanor more withdrawn. What puzzled Miriam most was that John was never alone. A small girl, no older than 7 or 8, accompanied him nightly. She wore a bright yellow dress, a splash of color against the darkening street. Miriam's heart ached as she watched the girl, Lily she believed her name was, her wide eyes seeming too heavy with secrets far beyond her years. The car would disappear into an old run-down garage at the end of the block. The garage, with its peeling paint and rusted door, stood in stark contrast to the well-kept homes around it. To Miriam, it felt like a place of secrets, a dark corner in an otherwise bright neighborhood. With each passing night, Miriam's curiosity deepened into concern. What was John Marshall doing, hiding away in that decrepit garage with a little girl? And why did the sight send a ripple of unease through the close-knit community she loved so dearly? Though her neighbors often dismissed such worries as the product of an old woman's imagination, Miriam knew better. Something wasn't right on Maple Street, and she felt compelled to uncover the truth, no matter what it might cost. John Marshall was a man defined by contrast. In his prime, he had been the embodiment of success, a self-made entrepreneur whose sharp intellect and relentless drive built an empire. His tailored suits and confident stride once commanded boardrooms and charity galas alike. But now the man who glided silently down Maple Street each evening appeared a shadow of that former self. His once pristine navy suit was now slightly rumpled, and the sparkle in his eyes had dimmed to guarded caution. Each night, John's routine was the same, and always shrouded in secrecy. Driving a sleek black sedan, he would arrive at the old garage on the outskirts of the neighborhood just before dusk. With him was Lily Parker, a quiet child no older than 8, whose bright yellow dress was a vivid beacon against the muted colors of the fading day. Lily's appearance was striking. Dark curls framing a delicate face, her eyes large and thoughtful, as if carrying burdens far beyond her years. Despite her youth, there was a quiet resilience in the way she held herself, a calmness that both comforted and unsettled those who noticed her. John never interacted with neighbors during these visits. He moved with deliberate care, guiding Lily from the car to the garage, where the door creaked open to swallow them into its shadowy interior. The peeling paint and rusted metal of the garage made it seem like a forgotten relic. Yet it was the place where John and Lily spent long hours away from prying eyes. From Miriam's vantage point, she watched these nightly visits with a growing knot of unease. The secrecy surrounding the garage, the stark contrast between John's former prominence and his current hidden existence, and the mysterious presence of the child all painted a troubling picture. Sometimes John and Lily would emerge in the early morning light, their figures framed by the pale dawn. John's face was often etched with exhaustion, while Lily appeared tired yet composed, clutching a small worn backpack. Together they would slip back into the car and disappear down the street, leaving behind whispers and questions among the neighborhood's residents. Miriam often wondered about their story. Was John protecting Lily from some unseen danger? Was the garage a sanctuary or a prison? And most importantly, was the little girl truly safe? These questions haunted Miriam, fueling her determination to uncover the truth behind the mysterious nightly visits and the secret life unfolding on the quiet street. Miriam's concern deepened with every passing evening. What had started as simple curiosity now grew into a relentless vigilance. She found herself drawn to the window long before John's sleek black car ever appeared, her eyes searching the shadows of Maple Street for any sign of the mysterious pair. Her neighbors began to notice. Diane Carter, a longtime friend and fellow book club member, once joked, "Miriam, you're practically part of the furniture by that window." But Miriam's usual light-hearted smile masked the storm brewing inside her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The little girl, Lily, had always seemed quiet and withdrawn, but Miriam noticed subtle signs of distress whenever she glimpsed her. A quick flinch when John's voice grew sharp, a hesitant glance toward the street, a tension in her small hands. Miriam's heart ached with worry. She started making excuses to be outside during the evenings, watering her plants, checking her mailbox, or taking slow walks along the sidewalk. All attempts to get a closer look without arousing suspicion. But John was always watchful, his eyes scanning the street vigilantly, ensuring that no one got too close. Miriam's internal conflict grew daily. She wrestled with doubt. Was she reading too much into innocent circumstances? Were her fears merely the result of loneliness or an overactive imagination? Yet every instinct in her body screamed otherwise. Her concern wasn't just about the strangers. It was about the safety of a child whose bright yellow dress was the only beacon in a growing shadow. Miriam felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. Despite the isolation her suspicions brought, she resolved to keep watching, to gather whatever evidence she could, no matter how small, that might shed light on the truth. The weekly gathering at the Willow Creek Community Center was usually a cheerful affair. Neighbors catching up, sharing recipes, discussing the latest neighborhood news. But this particular Tuesday afternoon, the mood was different. Miriam Walker, usually quiet during their book club meetings, cleared her throat and stood before the group with a seriousness that immediately captured attention. "I need to talk to you all about something troubling," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves. "It's about John Marshall and the little girl Lily, who's been seen with him." A hush fell over the room. Diane Carter, sitting nearby, exchanged a concerned glance with Tom Harris, the retired postal worker. Lisa Matthews, a young mother known for her calm demeanor, leaned in, curiosity piqued. Miriam recounted what she had observed. The late-night visits to the abandoned garage, the secrecy, the isolation. She spoke of Lily's somber eyes and the growing unease she felt watching the pair. Her words hung heavy in the air. Lisa was the first to respond, her tone gentle but cautious. "I've seen them too, but isn't John known for his charity work? Maybe he's helping Lily's family somehow." Diane nodded. "That's right. Remember when John helped the Robinsons after their fire? He's always been generous." But Tom shifted uncomfortably. "Still, an old garage isn't a home. Why all the secrecy?" The room was divided. Some dismissed Miriam's concerns as overthinking. Others worried quietly but hesitated to speak out. A few hinted that Miriam's suspicions might be colored by fear or misunderstanding. Miriam felt a pang of isolation. The community she loved seemed unwilling to face uncomfortable truths, preferring to protect reputations over safety. Yet the meeting sparked a small but significant shift. Miriam knew that to protect Lily and uncover the truth, she would need allies, and she was determined to find them. As the days passed, Miriam's observations grew more detailed and deliberate. She noticed the subtle signs of strain in both John and Lily. The way John's jaw tightened whenever a car passed the garage too slowly. The way Lily's shoulders slumped as if carrying invisible burdens. Miriam saw Lily hesitate before stepping outside, always looking around cautiously, as if afraid of being seen. One afternoon, Miriam spotted Lily clutching a small, worn teddy bear tightly against her chest, her eyes darting nervously as John spoke in low, urgent tones. The conversations between them were brief, sometimes tense, but always filled with an unspoken urgency. Miriam's heart tightened with worry. She also noticed a new development. An unfamiliar man had begun visiting the garage. The visitor was imposing, dressed sharply but with a cold edge. One evening, Miriam watched from a distance as the visitor confronted John. Their exchange was heated, the visitor's gestures sharp and threatening, John's replies defensive and strained. The tension in the neighborhood was palpable, though no one else seemed to notice. Miriam felt increasingly isolated in her concern, but the mounting evidence was impossible to ignore. She began to document her observations meticulously, noting times, interactions, and changes in behavior, hoping that when the moment came, she could provide a clear picture of what was unfolding. The more she learned, the more she understood that the situation was far more complex and dangerous than she had initially feared. One chilly evening, as the orange hues of sunset faded into twilight, Miriam found herself once again watching the garage with bated breath. Her heart pounded as she noticed John stepping out, his face shadowed with worry. She knew she was close to uncovering something significant, and yet the risk of discovery weighed heavily on her mind. Suddenly, a twig snapped beneath Miriam's cautious step, and John's sharp gaze snapped toward her hiding spot. Their eyes locked, and for a tense moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. John's expression hardened as he approached, his voice low and urgent. "You've been watching us," he said, the edge of anger unmistakable. Miriam raised her hand slightly, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm worried about Lily. I just want to help." His eyes flickered with a mixture of frustration and fear. "This isn't a game. Stay away. For your own sake, and for hers." Despite the warning, Miriam's resolve only strengthened. She knew there was more beneath the surface, and she couldn't turn away now. That night, Miriam lay awake replaying the confrontation. The fear in John's eyes was real, but so was his desperation. Something was deeply wrong, and it was up to her to find the truth before it was too late. Miriam awoke the next morning with a resolve she hadn't felt in years. The warning from John lingered in her mind, but instead of deterring her, it ignited a fierce determination. She couldn't ignore the dangers she sensed surrounding Lily, nor could she allow fear to silence her instincts. She went about her day with purposeful intent, organizing her notes, reviewing every detail she had observed, and planning her next steps carefully. Miriam knew that vague suspicions wouldn't be enough. She needed concrete evidence to convince others and to protect the child. That evening, as dusk settled, Miriam prepared herself for a bold move. She bundled up in her warmest coat, tucked her notebook into her bag, and stepped out quietly into the cooling air. She decided to follow John and Lily not from afar, but close enough to catch any details she might have missed before. Her heart raced as she trailed them through the dimly lit streets to the local park where they often lingered. From behind a large oak tree, she overheard fragments of a tense conversation. Lily's soft voice trembled as she spoke, and John's replies were low, urgent, and filled with worry. "We can't keep living like this, Lily. It's not safe anymore," John said. Lily clutched his arm, her voice pleading. "But this is all I know. Why can't we stay?" Miriam's chest tightened. Whatever trouble they were in, it was clear they were running from something, and the stakes were higher than she had imagined. Suddenly, a twig snapped under Miriam's foot, and John's head whipped toward her hiding spot. Panic surged through her veins. She froze, knowing this moment could change everything. John Marshall's eyes softened as he stepped closer to Miriam, the tension between them easing for a brief moment. In a voice thick with exhaustion and regret, he began to unravel the story behind the man he had become and the secret he carried with him. "I used to have everything. The mansion on the hill, the thriving business, respect in this community," John confessed, his gaze distant. "But then the market crashed. Bad investments, betrayal. Everything crumbled faster than I could hold on." He paused, swallowing hard as the weight of his past pressed down on him. "I lost it all. My company, my fortune, my standing. The shame was unbearable. I couldn't face the judgment of friends, neighbors, or even myself." John's hands trembled slightly as he looked toward the small figure of Lily, who sat quietly nearby. "Lily, she's the only family I have left. When the creditors started closing in, I had nowhere else to turn. This garage," he gestured toward the dilapidated structure down the street, "was the only place I could hide us. It's not much, but it's safe." Miriam listened intently, empathy replacing suspicion. The man she'd feared was not a villain, but a broken soul desperately trying to protect a child. "But there are those who won't stop," John continued. "Debt collectors, old enemies. They're relentless. That man you saw, he's one of them. I don't know how much longer we can keep running." Miriam's heart ached as she realized the depth of John and Lily's struggle. It wasn't just about secrets. It was about survival, pride, and the hope for a second chance. She knew then that her role was clear, not as a watchdog or accuser, but as a protector and ally. Miriam took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. Despite the hardships John and Lily faced, she felt a strong pull to help. She remembered her own lonely days after losing her husband and knew how powerful a hand of kindness could be. "John," she said gently, "you don't have to do this alone anymore. I want to help. Come stay with me, you and Lily. We'll figure this out together." John looked surprised, then hesitant. "Miriam, I can't ask you to do that. It's a lot to take on." Miriam smiled warmly. "You're not asking. You're accepting. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them." That evening, John and Lily moved into Miriam's home. The old house, once quiet and solitary, began to fill with new life and hope. Miriam prepared the spare bedroom for Lily, unpacking her few belongings and creating a space of warmth and safety. John, still burdened but relieved, began to open up more. Over cups of tea and quiet conversations on the porch, he shared plans to find work and rebuild his life. Not just for himself, but for Lily. Miriam offered steady support, helping him connect with local resources and managing the delicate balance of privacy and assistance. Though challenges loomed ahead, a new chapter had begun, one marked by compassion, resilience, and the promise of healing. John's journey toward rebuilding his life was far from easy. The scars of financial ruin and the weight of pride made every step forward a challenge. But with Miriam's steady encouragement and Lily's bright spirit lighting the way, he began to find small victories in the everyday. Through an old friend, Miriam helped John secure a modest administrative job in a nearby town. It was a far cry from his previous executive position, but John embraced it with determination. Each day he donned a simple shirt and tie, reminding himself that this was the first step toward reclaiming his dignity and independence. His first paycheck brought a quiet sense of accomplishment. John insisted on contributing to household expenses, even if only a small amount. Miriam welcomed the gesture, understanding its importance to him. "It's not just about the money," John said one evening. "It's about proving to myself that I can still provide, still be responsible." Meanwhile, Lily adjusted to her new school. Initially shy and reserved, she slowly began to open up, making friends and showing glimpses of the joyful child she once was. Miriam often helped with homework and cheered on Lily's small successes, celebrating each step of progress. Financial worries and debt collectors lingered, but John faced them head-on, creating budgets and repayment plans with Miriam's guidance. When persistent creditors called Miriam's home, she handled the calls firmly and discreetly, protecting the family's privacy. Though the road was long, John's commitment to rebuilding and Lily's resilience were powerful forces that carried them through each challenge. With each passing week, hope began to bloom in Miriam's home. The heavy shadows that had once clouded John's eyes gradually lifted, replaced by quiet determination and a renewed sense of purpose. Lily's laughter, once rare and hesitant, now echoed through the rooms, weaving light into the fabric of their shared life. Neighbors who had once whispered rumors or turned away started to notice the subtle changes. Miriam's steady presence and the small but meaningful progress John and Lily made began to soften some hearts. Diane Carter stopped by more often, bringing homemade meals, while Tom Harris offered to help John with odd jobs around the neighborhood. Though the scars of hardship remained, a fragile but growing sense of community began to take root. Miriam organized small gatherings, inviting neighbors to bridge gaps and foster understanding. The stories of second chances and resilience slowly seeped into the neighborhood's consciousness. John, too, found solace in reconnecting with his past networks, attending local events and volunteering quietly where he could. Lily thrived in school, her confidence growing with each new friendship and accomplishment. Together, they were not just surviving, they were healing, rebuilding, and reminding everyone that sometimes compassion is the greatest strength of all. As the seasons turned, Miriam sat quietly on her porch, watching the neighborhood bathed in the golden light of early evening. The old garage at the end of Maple Street, once a symbol of mystery and worry, now stood silent, a relic of a chapter closed but not forgotten. Her heart swelled with a mixture of relief and hope. What had begun as suspicion and fear had transformed into a story of redemption and human kindness. John Marshall and Lily Parker, once shadows in the night, had found refuge and new beginnings in the warmth of her home and the community's slowly healing heart. Miriam reflected on the power of courage, the courage to watch, to question, to reach out when something feels wrong. She thought of the many silent struggles hidden behind closed doors and the difference one person can make by simply refusing to turn away. To everyone listening, Miriam's story was a quiet but powerful reminder. When we choose compassion over judgment, when we stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves, we help build a world where safety, hope, and love can flourish. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the streets of Willow Creek. If this story moved you, please share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales of courage and transformation. Together, we can shine light into even the darkest corners.